Hey, Thomas.
Hi, Josh.
How are you? I'm looking, for some reason I don't get the button to pause recording this time. Sometimes I get that button. Maybe I'm not signed into the Zoom site or something. How's things been going?
Yeah, so couldn't find the mute button. Yeah, all pretty good. Very, very busy, but all good.
I think I saw
How about
something. You were doing a presentation with Whitney Lee or something.
Yeah, about Kustomize.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah, I did a talk a couple weeks ago on GitOps and stuff, and Helm and Kustomize and the templating and rendering engines are like so embedded. Like it's almost like a given. Like if you're using Argo, you're using also some template rendering thing in there. It struck me as I was working on it.
Yeah, that's an interesting, maybe shared assumption now that you find that kind of support in these tools.
Yeah, you know what? You know what it reminded me of? Both Q Plus and I had someone at Red Hat this week actually bring up where the deployment of everything was a chart. Like the way you deploy an app is you build a chart for it, like your own app, not just dependencies and things. I guess that's not so crazy. So therefore GitOps, if it orients on your chart, it's basically just taking Helm and making it into continuously reconciled. Almost like Tiller. It's been a while since Tiller, but
yeah, basically, yeah, because now you're missing that part that does the continuous reconciliation on cluster, and you use one of these tools. Yeah.
Yeah, even the hooks. That's something because I guess I hadn't gotten super deep in Argo CD, and I was like, the hooks. At first, they even respected the annotations for Helm hooks. So like now they have their own, but all right, we'll get started in a minute here.
Yeah.
A little less crowd than usual, or at least the past couple times. Here's the notes. Hey, Saim.
Hello, Josh. How are you?
I am good.
Hello.
I am good. Hey, Colin. Hey, Abhinav. How was your event last week?
It was good. Yeah, I think the happy hour itself, that like, so that we had like two happy hours. So the Thursday one was definitely really good attendance. Friday one a little bit light, I guess, because it was, it's Friday. So, but I mean, overall, I think the event went well. So yeah.
I should ask you guys, well, especially you, Abhinav. I'm working on the Chicago cloud community, so that's not for this thing, but definitely, you definitely can come, can help us. Let's talk.
Yeah, we should. Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. I'd love to, start doing that. So yeah.
Yeah, suddenly gotten real. I talked with the community lead stuff. Okay, I can't take this call for this. Yes, thank you all for joining. Let's get started. I think the main thing to talk about is where we're at with the paper publication. I think we're moving steadily along. Colin, I look at you for your thoughts here, but what kind of happened, I guess I can sum up, is Colin proposed we do the paper in its own site. And as we started to look into that, we realized, well, we have a Jekyll site associated with the tag already. We have another white paper in the tag. I need to write some posts about this article and about our KubeCon stuff. So why don't we just converge it all? Because it ends up, it's a Hugo static site generator is the way it's all built. So Colin, thank you. He helped us find Chris Abraham, who's the web engineering manager. That's his title for CNCF. And he is like the same. They use this Hugo framework for all of the CNCF sites, contributors and glossaries and cartographos. So he said he will get together a framework and the scaffold and put it into Tag App Delivery's stuff that will have a place for our blog and a place for our white papers, and we'll be able to just land in there.
Yeah, that was the majority of my questions too. The thing that's different about App Delivery than the other groups is like they all kind of individually have just like one purposeful site. So Cartographer is the maturity model. There's not like multiple things. But App Delivery is like platforms, GitOps, like App Delivery it's got everything. So the current site structure is really more of a, like an individual site for an individual. And I think that's what Chris is getting at now is okay, he's got the information he needs to put together a structure that will work for multiple sites.
Is that okay with you, Colin? It seems like a good direction.
Sorry?
It's a little hard for me to hear. Is that what you're facing as well? Yeah.
Yeah, same.
Sorry.
Yeah, same.
Is that better?
Yes, for sure.
Much better.
It's like-
Thank you.
I just came back from an offsite meeting, and so the clamshell in the laptop is trying to pick it's so stupid. Windows, just blame Windows. Yeah, so what I was saying is that the like for Cartographos and the other sites, it's kind of one-to-one website to paper, and the current site scaffold that they have really fits that mold. And what the issue that we inadvertently raised or highlighted was that App Delivery does a lot of things. And so if we wanted one site for App Delivery, there needs to be some, and that was where the majority of my questions were going to be, is like, well, we kind of need individual URLs for these different papers, and then maybe they link back to an App Delivery thing. But it sounds like Chris is going to look at having a framework that fits that kind of multi-paper mode. Is that kind of what you were getting out of that too, Josh?
Yeah, in fact, I should show you guys, get your feedback,
Okay.
what the last thing that he shared.
And this should be, I believe this will probably end up being like appdelivery.cncf.io/platforms kind of thing, right?
Probably, yeah. So this is the
The header, okay.
yeah, can you all see? I'm not sure exactly what it's showing. But yeah, he said well, the Cloud Native Contributors has this landing page, which is a bit too much for us, so he's gonna trim that down. And then there's these like 4 headers across the top. Basically, one of these would be posts, one of these would be white papers. We don't really have anything else probably at this point. Maybe one is resources, but that's good enough to start. And then under this, so under about, you have charter contributing guide. So one of these will be the platforms paper. I think this is kind of where we're going. One will be the operators paper. And then we work down from there.
Yeah, there might be a way to simplify the navigation a little too. I want to avoid like having all of the papers in one massive doc, because it's actually kind of nice that people can go directly to platforms and think about platforms. But that's just like a navigation tree.
I would love you, Colin. That's why I wanted you to stay with us. Like, give him some feedback. I mean,
I can chat with him. I had a side conversation going with him when I was trying to get the maturity model site repurposed. I don't know if he remembered that or if he expected the site to be a duplication, which was good, but I think it got the point across.
He wanted to use your thing. He was like, should I merge that and go from there? I was like, well, ask Colin, but he hasn't made it a PR, so I don't think so.
Well, I'll reach out to him and chat with him too.
Okay, sweet. Thank you so much. That's a big help. Yeah, it's a big help if you could make I think we're on the right track, but if you could make sure the details are good, like that.
Yeah, and relevant, I think maybe to we had this kind of idea that was thrown out where maybe the site can be part of a proof of concept platform example or something. The current, I think we're going to deploy, it's going to be deployed on Netlify to match some of the other sites is what it sounds like. We'd originally looked at doing the GitHub pages format, but just sharing that information for the other folks. But maybe if anyone was interested in using that as part of the platform POC or is thinking about the platform POC, it doesn't sound like they're quite aligned at the beginning quite yet, but maybe we can make that a future thing. Just want to make that note real quick. That's all I got.
Interesting what you like. I think you're getting at, like, can we learn from this to come up with a template for the future? I just noticed as I was literally showing you guys this contributing site, what I just pasted in, which is kind of their golden path for doing content. So there's actually, we might be able to build off that. Except now that we're doing Hugo and Doxy, just like the rest of CNCF.
Yeah, it's actually, so the Hugo sites are an interesting case. And you were talking about GitOps before you got on here, but the way that the repos are currently structured throughout these CNCF sites is we're using, and just as a little technical underpinning, right, to dissect it a little bit, they're using Git submodules to reference specific commits for the Hugo package, and then, oh man, one of the UI, one of like the CSS packages that's being used essentially. But
the hard way.
I don't really like that. Like submodules get weird when you start to pull things into mono repo, and then you have to manage a bunch of submodules, and then people don't have access to some submodules and stuff. So it could be interesting to, once this site gets implemented, it looks like it's driving some patterns, or solidifying some patterns, to take a step back and look at, the overall platform as a whole for the CNCF, and maybe how contributors are able to do this type of thing, amongst every organization there. I think there is definitely a platform evaluation thing that we should probably do to ourselves after this is over with. It'd be kind of cool. That's kind of a cool case study. It's like dissecting the CNCF's own platforms. It's kind of cool.
It kind of relates. So one of the things I wanted to bring up today, like as we get the paper kind of in a good state and out, what's the next stuff? And I want to work on the prototype platform because I need it for demos anyway. I need to put some stuff together. And that's it. Oh, so but like on the site, like it's a static site. So will we, if we like said, oh, how do we host our site in this? Would that be a good use case? I'm just thinking out loud.
So two thoughts on that. One is there's the argument for, is hosting a static site on self-managed infrastructure or like a Kubernetes platform worthwhile? And the answer is probably no in a lot of cases for a lot of organizations. But then there's the other side where a lot of organizations are trying to figure out how to use static site tools within platforms or Kubernetes. And there's a lot of opinion and like things that can be sorted out there. And that's actually something I'm seeing a lot and advising on a lot in the, in the platform space in itself. Like, hey, we've got this Vercel site, or we've got this thing in S3. What's that going to look like once we consolidate, our platform strategy? And I think there's a real question to answer there. My final opinion would probably be the sites don't need to be hosted in some centralized platform. There just doesn't seem like there's a lot of need for that, but it would be a fun proof of concept. But on the other side, I really would like to use this as an opportunity to answer that question and provide some guidance. This whole, like, as we use modern dev tools, how do we pull these back into modern IT strategy as well? It's interesting.
Yeah, I really like this because one of the things as we worked on the paper was like, let's think of use cases. And we have the web dev use case, but mostly that's about an API server that serves HTML and calls back. It would be cool to pursue, like, what does it look like if you're just putting stuff in buckets and using a CDN? Like, that's a whole different set of something.
Right, exactly.
Cool, thank you. I put a note under the develop prototype platform.
Cool.
Yeah. Okay, thank you so much for Colin for driving that. It's really cool. The other side of what we're doing here is crafting a PDF. There was a PDF that was released earlier this week for the IoT Edge. I started a thread with the CNCF to see if we could do the same thing. Does anybody, I was going to ask if anybody wants to help with that. Not sure exactly what's required, probably putting like a graphic on the front page or something. I'm not sure. But I have a thread going now with the right people, so.
There were.
Yes, I'm actually going for the blog.
Oh yeah, you just did a blog, Saim. Yeah. Did you write your blog? Do you want to write a blog post, Saim, and help us with this PDF? Because that's the other thing we have to do.
Yes, Yes, absolutely. I'm thinking about like I think for the graphic, I think CNCF actually uh work on the graphic side as well. If you write a blog post for their website, actually they take the responsibility of looking at more polish and graphic and everything. So I'm actually going for the Edge blog. Or you have a link you can share with the people here so they can see it.
Not yet, but can I add you, Saeem, can I add you to the thread and you'll help me with this, getting this blog post out and making sure the PDF is right, since you just did that with your event in Pakistan?
Yes, absolutely. Please do. Where is actually the thread is actually happening? Which CN
It's an
is it a
email.
CNCF Slack channel
No, it's
or
an
it's an email?
Yeah, I haven't had a chance. I wrote to her on Friday when I saw that IoT paper, because they had told us, we looked into it. And they said, oh no, it's just however you want to do it, put a PDF in your repo if you want, or something like that. And then I saw that paper come out and I was like, well, it looks like there is a process. So we wrote to them and they said, they put us in contact with that person. So that's where I'm at. So let me see
Okay,
where.
okay. The one actually I wrote for them is actually the very simple process. I just write a words for them and they actually publish it on their website. But for might be the PDF is quite a work involved there.
Okay, yeah, it looks like, so let me read to you all what it says. At our end, we can help design the white paper layout for you, as well as creating the social sharing images. What I'd recommend is sharing the white paper as a Google doc when it's ready, along with any images or graphics you would like. We can then whip up a draft PDF for you to review. That's pretty straightforward. I mean, we can work on it, but I would like to include you, Saeem. I'd like to include some other
Yes,
folks.
yes, absolutely. Definitely include me. I will take responsibility there. There is a blog post we actually mentioning. If some of the people is not.
We haven't written the blog post. Basically, as we release the white paper, we'll release a blog post pointing to it. We'll probably work
Absolutely,
on it.
but yes, yes, sir. So do you actually do ever think about we have a one blog post and then they all download the white paper and then people download it. So blog plus the link to the PDF. Actually, I'm thinking.
Yes, exactly. And a link to the website, hopefully, if it's up by then. Like, we're going to release the white paper in two ways: the PDF, because that's what everyone else does, and the website, which is like our evergreen or whatever. So the blog post will point to the PDF and hopefully the website.
And the PDF will be on the GitHub repo as well, or is there another place where it should be put?
We'll see what the IoT those guys did. I don't love PDFs and repos, but yeah, sure, if that's what they want. You have an opinion on that, Thomas?
No, just so that like the security white paper and supply chain security white paper, they have the PDFs on GitHub, but
I guess we should put it
also
in.
it's not kept up to date. I can see like there's a lot of changes to the docs, but the PDF is not regenerated. So I don't have a strong opinion, but it would be nice to have this automated generation process. Like if we change things that like we have it aligned both on the website and the PDF so that we don't have outdated versions hanging around.
Get out of date. Let's note that PDF will get out of date. How to up? Let's you know what? In that thread, we need to ask them that. Like, how do we regenerate this PDF every quarter or something? Ask.
Yeah,
So-
that makes sense for sure. Yep.
So Josh, have you actually added some email or have added you on the thread as well? Email including in that thread.
Sorry, what? You cut out a little there, Saeem.
I'm just saying, like, have you included me on the email thread so I can take a look at the responsibilities and the stuff I need?
It's not much. Don't worry. It's I just want to have someone on there with me. Here, let me add you to it. Exciting. Are you, you don't, probably don't want to say your email right here. To help. Okay. Okay, so we'll get that done. It's not, it shouldn't be too complicated. The other thing I wanted to bring up is the survey. I don't know. Does anybody want to volunteer here? I'm gonna also ask Robert because he's expressed interest in this before.
So for the survey, where are we exactly at? And what steps do we want to take? I think maybe what we should do is I think, do we have like any like planning doc where we can just kind of like write up some questions or, get started on that, or not yet?
It's the kind of thing with, I mean, I would get it started, but I haven't yet. We did have, yes, actually, look at this. We do have this doc from way back. Anyone with the link can edit. I'll paste them in the chat here. I don't know if this can be helpful. This was an old one. This is from Cooperative Delivery, like the very beginning. So maybe this can help a little bit. Let me write, I'll put it in our notes.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, it needs it needs someone to kind of think about it and put together the questions and bring people together. To some
Yeah,
degree.
I can take an initial stab at coming up with like a structure for this. So basically what we want is like a platforms working group survey, right? And that we'd want to understand, like, my thinking is we should understand, maybe get some perspectives on, some of the challenges in general, right? Like some of the use cases they're trying to target, maybe what are some of the key building blocks they're incorporating today, like stuff like that, right? Would be maybe types of personas that they're catering their platform to, that type of stuff is what we're thinking.
Yeah, probably. Although the way we might structure it is kind of like, what's the goal of the survey? Like, what do we want to learn? And then go from there to craft the questions. Like, one of the
Yeah,
questions
true.
is, what do people want portals for? I don't know. I'm just saying, like, that's
Yeah, what's the target audience of the survey? Like, is it the users of the platform or is it the engineers building the platform?
Yeah, actually, like this Cooperative Delivery Ouija survey has some of these, like it has audience, so this might be a good guide because we were thinking in these terms, like what personas. We could discuss that a little bit now if you want.
So I did notice there was a survey recently put out there. I think it was like a state of platform engineering survey or something like
Yeah. Oh, was that Humanitech?
no, somebody else. Let me see.
The goal of this one and the reason, and we should think about that. I'm glad you're bringing this up actually. Why do we want to run a survey? This was actually suggested by some people in the talk, and I'm trying to get the talk to support us in this. Because what can we leverage being vendor neutral? Can we ask different kinds of questions, get different kinds of answers, publish the data like publicly so that it's not already interpreted by whoever ran the survey, so that other companies can learn from it, projects can learn from it.
So here's kind of like a kind of my viewpoint, and just feel free to completely chuck it out the window, but just my 2 cents, right? So I think what's happening is there's kind of a lot of sort of guidance in the platform engineering community around, like, there's some things like IDPs and how to build platforms and all that kind of stuff. But at least one of the feedback, and Taras and I and Sam, we were all chatting about this, is that there's kind of not enough sort of talk around, like, just like, things around like design considerations. There's things around like, where do I even start? Like, how are people thinking about when people are thinking about platforms, right? Like in their organizations, you know, we're kind of talking around these things like developer self-service and IDPs and all that kind of stuff. But like there kind of has to be a level of, you know, we should be talking about things like, hey, like what are the requirements that your organization is imposing on you? Like, how do you deal with that, right? Or like, you know, like how are you evaluating, or how like you know, maybe things around like budgets, or like how are you evaluating certain criteria? Like I love to kind of for us to even take a step back a little bit as what you're saying, right? And because I think that a lot of the content that's getting generated these days around platform engineering is like, yeah, talking a lot about like, you know, IDPs is one of them, but also like, you know, how to build your portal, how to integrate X, Y, and Z, all that kind of stuff. But I think a lot of Fortune 500 companies, or you know, Fortune 1000 companies are not even there yet, is the sense I get, in terms of being able to you know, think about platforms in that manner, if that makes sense, right? They have a lot of other things to deal with first. And so I think kind of taking a little bit of a more neutral approach, and trying to figure out like, hey, like what are the top use cases, like what are the key strategic agendas they need to solve for, like how are they thinking about platforms, like what are the big roadblocks that they're facing when it comes to delivering a platform agenda or platform strategy for the company, like, and then for us to be able to provide the right guidance on top, I think would show a lot of good thought leadership, for us potentially, is what I was thinking.
I love
Yeah,
it.
that's a very good point. I liked the new content that Syntasso, the company behind Credix, published a couple of days ago. Posting the link here about
Yeah.
platform journeys, like starting from where are you now, like how, as a developer, how do you get something? Do you create a Jira ticket? Then perhaps this is the first step towards a modern platform that you can take, like put an API in front of it. You still use tickets, but then that's the first step towards a modern cloud native platform. And I like the approach of starting from where are you now? Are you using tickets to ask someone else to provision services, or perhaps you're using Azure and you want to centralize security and cost optimization and budgets? How do you control that? Yeah, so kind of reverting, like not how to build a platform, but where are you now and what are some possible options for you to get start this new, I don't know how to call it, cloud native transformation, or modernization of the organization. That also it's important because as an organization, you don't have budget right away to build the whole platform, but just meeting organizations where they are now and how they are addressing, how they start the journey. I think that's the interesting part, because probably the most difficult part is starting. So what's the first step? Where should I start? There's so much that I can do, but I have a running business. So what's the first step?
100%. I think that's really powerful. I'm writing a blog post right now, for example, on, you know, platform like EKS and multi-tenancy, and I'm realizing like one of the key things around all this platform stuff that we're doing is it's typically the pain point isn't around the tech, it's around the process that they have today. There's it's around processes and how they kind of need to be able to fundamentally like shift those, right? But like I think for us, our job as a working group is to be able to get them to that journey, right? And whatever. And so like, for example, the Syntasso one is fantastic because like, it's not even really diving deep too much into, you know, portals and self-service and all that kind of stuff. Like even at a higher level, what is the process you're taking, and how we can take kind of a step-by-step journey in terms of getting you there. So at least, so yeah, that's kind of what maybe I can take an initial crack at, like the goals and, you know, maybe a little bit of a structure and that type of stuff. And then maybe in our next working group, I guess our next one's in 2 weeks, right? So is it in 2 weeks or is it in 1 week? Two, right? So yeah, I think in 2 weeks I can get something like down on paper, potentially for us to talk through.
I'm going to introduce you to Robert too. I want him to give him a chance because he was doing some of that doc that I shared in there. Maybe he can help.
Yeah, 100%. Like, yeah, exactly. Like I'd love for more than just, you know, 2 people to be able to contribute to this even in its initial phases. So
mean,
whatever.
Dude, that's amazing.
Sorry.
I'm happy to get 2. That's amazing. Thank you for your, I mean, this is a big contribution, so.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So I think, yeah, so that should be good.
Okay, and I'll let you know also, like I tried to reach out to Chris Anishek. I need to write to him again. That was suggested to tell him we're doing this and kind of get their backing or advice. And I'll tell you anything that happens there. I'm meeting also with Emily, who's very involved with the talk these days. So same thing. I want them to value this and to tell us what they want to learn. And so I'll let you know how that goes and I'll include you.
Yeah.
Is
So-
there anything else missing about the paper? I don't know if someone raised some concerns, something that needs to be changed or rewritten, or I don't know. Like how is there any news about the review in progress, and is there anything that we need to address before being able to actually go and publish it?
I am happy to say that not really, no. I mean, we're pretty much, the only things that have come up is a couple of projects, you know, saying let's get our name in the list or on the graphic. So we'll make sure to get that in. Anything with just CNCF, no problem. And otherwise it's been pretty quiet. So
There was that one question.
That's great to hear.
On the
So,
yeah, Emily
So-
asked. Emily asked, is that what you're talking about, Abhinav?
I think there was one question around like why are we only including internal platforms? or
Yes.
something.
From one of the leads at Heroku, Terrence Lee.
Yeah.
was in our
Yeah.
channel asking why we said internal platforms. I didn't quite realize it was, I mean, I realized he's Heroku, but like, I think the answer I gave is what we think, which is that, yes, you might use Heroku as your platform, but when you bring it into your enterprise, you are making it an internal platform from it.
Yeah, I think it's that answer around, you know, when we refer to internal, we refer to as this is being used by your internal stakeholders, right? And with that, there comes some considerations that we want to talk about in this paper, and then it's also like, you know, the way we've talked about it, I don't think we've said you have to build everything, right? In fact, I think the way we've come across in the paper is that, you know, make it thinnest viable, and whatever offerings, whether they're from public cloud providers or other vendors you're able to buy to solve for, you should really consider that, right? So if somebody wanted to, I don't think the paper, if anything, goes again. I think it actually favors what a Heroku would, you know, because somebody can use Heroku, for example, like for like app development and PaaS, for example, but then there's still other considerations around like, you know, multi-tenancy and infrastructure and, you know, all those kind of things, which maybe Heroku doesn't necessarily solve for, which we were talking about in the capability section in the paper, right? So, so I think it's fine. At least from my stance, I think maybe if we start to get more pushback or there's some clarity we need to do, maybe we can address that in a second wave. But I think at least let's get some more feedback before we do that is what my thinking is.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the paper looks quite inclusive. Like, there's nothing about, oh, you should only use CNCF projects, for example. Of course, that's the examples we use, being a CNCF working group. But I think there's room for any kind of vendor to be part of that picture, because the internal part is there's a team curating the API, but then the implementation can be anything. So you can use all the vendors you'd like to have, including a Heroku. Yeah, so I don't see specific concerns in that area, at least. I don't think, like, we're very open about, oh, you shouldn't build everything yourself. Actually, the opposite. Like, think twice before building everything yourself, since there's so many good solutions out there.
It's really interesting how the portal, you know, backstage stuff is kind of emphasizing that, like, own the portal, but then leave all of this other stuff to something else.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's actually pretty awesome around backstage, right? The way they've kind of done it, it's like in some ways we don't want to we want to be, this is kind of our responsibility of providing that interface from a self-service and point of view. But like, yeah, exactly. The whole thing around, so like, for example, we're exploring a project, and I was just, Josh, I think we were talking about it right around like, or at Rafe, right, about around how we can provide developer self-service around Kubernetes and multi-tenancy platforms, right, and all that kind of stuff. And the cool thing is with Backstage is that Backstage is just really providing us like the scaffolding and the way to set up that self-service, right? But they're not like, they're not really dictating like you have to do it in this exact way, or like they're just kind of an interface for developer self-service, and that's kind of like one of the key capabilities, right? So I think that's also what, like, from a platform and even maybe from a survey point of view, right, us being able to kind of like get that information and even analyze if there's some confusion in the market. Because I think a lot of times what's happening is people feel like they have to build kind of um the whole thing from scratch, and this entire like, portal and all that kind of stuff. And I think for us to be able to take a step back and say, no, it's not that complicated, there's like, a couple key steps in your journey that you can take based on where you're starting from today, that I think that would be really powerful for us to be able to get to that, maybe by a Chicago KubeCon or something like that. So
Yeah, so Josh, on the topic of the overview and the reviews from the people from the journal community, so I have created for that particular reason, I want to create some like some of the people know that we are actually getting involved in this activity. So is that because once I was one of my experience in the CNCF, like during when we start working with the paper, there are very few people who are contributing to it. Once it's get published, everybody is jumping in and try to share their ideas. To have this loop actually closer, I created a LinkedIn and Twitter community as well. So it would be better if we can post this on your social as well, or we can talk. I can ask CNCF team to help reach us, because this is particularly created for this kind of stuff. We can need, because sometimes we need some surveys, sometimes we need communication. Having a one place actually help us a lot. So might we can include these two links for the LinkedIn and Twitter into the GitHub repository as well, so people can actually see these are the places where can these kind of conversation happening.
I definitely want to advertise it on those. Those are great ideas. We have to think a little if we want to put it into the actual repo. But yeah, let's think about it. Like, for sure, let's get the survey written and then share it through all of these. I'm thinking of it as marketing. Makes a lot of sense. Thanks for
Yes,
that.
absolutely.
Yeah, maybe eventually the website has, a resources section. This we should talk about with the whole tag, and that could have like links to like, here's Ouija GitOps' groups, and here's Ouija platforms groups, and the Chaos group actually may have some stuff too here. Yeah. Okay, so anything else on the
One
paper?
thing is actually like on the paper side, like Josh,
I think
What's up, Sai?
Sam, you broke up there. You want to go again? Might be having.
oh, sorry. I was just saying, like on the paper, on regarding the previous conversation, just need your opinion. On the paper, we need like only one image. Only one image is actually available on the paper as of today. So do you plan to have add more before the publishing, or it still be only one image?
It's a good point. Should we add we should definitely have a banner, a starter picture. Yeah. Yeah, we should.
Yes,
There's
I
a
can
skill
have.
set.
So do you think like before the papers actually start, we need a one bigger banner, or do we need more, because we need to give this information to the CNCF in future
I think
for
it's,
the
I mean, if
PDF?
we can arrive on some sort of image to accompany the post, that we don't have to make a process around that. We just have to figure out what it is.
Yes, so usually what I see, like once you actually download the PDF, the first page is actually a image.
Mhm.
And then the next page is actually the content. And then the third page is actually where this learning is reading actually start. For actually, I'm thinking we need a one banner for the front page.
Yeah.
So you mean for the PDF or the website?
So for the PDF actually,
Hmm.
because
Yeah.
usually if you download the PDF, the first page is actually having some kind of graphics or some kind of picture, and then we have content and then the reading.
Mhm.
So for
Is
that
there
is
any
actually,
like CNCF standard? I don't know how they did it for like the supply chain security. Yeah, there's usually some kind of background image and then the title as first page, and also actually a picture at the end, like the back cover of
yes.
the whole paper, also with an image there.
Yes, so actually, I think we need to provide that for to the marketing team, to the CNCF, because they don't know what it is. They can give us a header, they can write a, they can edit, but for that we need to give them a visual graphic to have things started. So I will prepare some kind of my designing, share with you later tomorrow. You can check it, share your ideas as well. And if that's cat idea, we can start circulating with the CNCF team. But it's tough to create one because there is so much into it.
That would be amazing. I mean, I think that thread, which I just added you to, Saeem, with the folks putting the PDF together, yeah, let's bring it up with them. I mean, that's basically what they asked for, some images. Thank you.
Yeah, that
Great.
sounds great. Thanks.
Hey, anything else on the paper? I guess I'm kind of thinking like based on, so we've had it open for almost 2 weeks for the folks to look at. Pretty straightforward feedback, couple small edits. Are we almost ready to merge and say we're good for V1? I guess we don't have to rush, but like maybe in the next week or something.
Yeah, it would be nice if we get to a point where we can just close the work on the paper and then focus on the publishing and marketing side of this.
So why don't I get like a message out in a couple, like just I'll just tag to the issue and I'll post it in the Slack and maybe say on the TOC that we're gonna give it one more week, and then maybe by the time we meet next time in 2 weeks, like maybe we should have it merged. Maybe even by end of next week.
Sounds good.
Sweet. Okay, so I do want to bring up this next topic because I've been herding cats here, and I'll let you all know. I mean, I'm sharing around as much as I can. One of the ideas that we have is, now that we have a foundation for a platform, how can we make some of these domains easier, reduce complexity, reduce cognitive load by seeking common patterns, seeking conventions. And that's, I guess I'm calling them capability domains. Let me just share my screen, I guess. The title is not, we don't have to stick with that, but I started opening, I put this doc together for my own sake. Then I was like, I might as well share it with everyone because it's a little confusing to track. But I opened a couple, I mean, service bindings and secrets, I've heard from a couple places, and I have a couple people, I'm actually meeting with someone that maybe can help lead that work. Basically it's to, I like things like, could we have a library of common token generators for common kinds of services? Could we have a standard pattern for where we inject secrets into a workload? Because right now there's just so many different things. Obviously we need Vault involved, and we don't necessarily have them. We have a couple GitOps companies, a couple Red Hat folks, Docker, a couple people involved. Another one here, sustainability. This one is more probably the tag that they have for this, but you know, do we bring in an optimization capability, and talk about that. Multi-tenancy is another one that was been pending around for us, but that was one that I think we decided is not relevant for platform users, so we didn't put it in the platform paper, but it's relevant for platform builders. Portal is a huge one for me. Like I haven't opened that, but I would love to talk about that somehow. Like, what is it that this our survey we're talking, what is it people want from Backstage and things like that? Is it these things? Is it one of these things? And then observability is another one on my radar also. So
Yep.
I guess, yeah.
I think these are really good, and I think there's almost like maybe if one could be, we're talking about Portal, but in many ways, a lot of these capabilities, there is some self-service element to it as well, right? Like when you're talking about like observability, or you're talking about like infrastructure access and all that kind of stuff, right? Like making sure any platform you're building can cater to these personas from a self-service view, but have the same like governance controls in place, right? To make sure they're not doing anything like out of band, for example, right? Like those kinds of considerations that we may want to incorporate as well. It's like kind of this, like the way at least we've been kind of talking about it, and the way we've seen it is at Rapid, is like this yin and yang, right? Between governance and self-service, like one doesn't exist without the other. So potentially we should, yeah, that'd be great. I think it'd be great to actually, I love the idea. I think we should start to maybe double click it into more of these and kind of talk about like what are maybe we can talk about like best practices. We can talk about like sort of like how platform teams should be thinking about it, right? Like what are basically how to approach the problem statement, right? And in many ways, right? And what are kind of the key considerations they should be thinking about. I think this could go a long way for us. So
As you're talking, and let me get people's take on this, I'm like, what you're talking about is the attributes in our paper, at least. I mean, we called those the attributes of a platform as a product, maybe self-service. So maybe we need to think about both attributes and capabilities.
I think so, because I think any capability we were going to be talking about, kind of the attributes is a little bit of the foundation to that, right? Or just kind of like the, hey, like, whatever capabilities we're going to be mentioning or referring to should kind of fit in that sort of guiding light of attributes that we want to cover ideally, right? So
we could also bring up the dimension of the workflows, like or I don't know how to call them, user stories. Like as a developer, I expect I provide my source code, and then I get a URL of my application up and running, and then what capabilities are required by the platform to support that use case, and then look into, I need service binding, I need a pipeline service, I need a runtime. Like to have, like, it's very interesting to look in detail into all these capabilities, but also like the overview of what do we use the capabilities for? Like what will the users see, or why would the user care that some capabilities are there?
I like that a lot. Yeah.
And that also might tie with the whole platform as a product. Like, what are the requirements from the users? We start with this use case, then we need these capabilities to implement the use case.
I hear you. Yeah, that would be pretty cool if we like the static site generator use case. Like if we said, okay, the static site generator takes these 4 capabilities, here's a prototype of it using CNCF projects. By the way, that's what I was thinking as you were talking, Thomas, is like this could dovetail nicely with prototype platforms. Like we could show a use case here. Because the main one I'm thinking about right now is just the, a couple microservices and a website. Okay, so I mean, the ask here, it's pretty late, so we can't talk too long, but we like this one is the one I'm thinking most about. So I'll just like, it's like, how do we now move things forward? Like, I think what I've suggested to the people that are interested in this issue is we're going to meet sometime in the next couple of weeks, like in a Zoom call to talk about ideas and start just meeting each other and talking about stuff, and then we'll meet at KubeCon maybe for an hour. I think that's like I guess the process I'm following is gather everything into one place, bring people together to kind of think about it, then bring them in a group to bring them even closer together, then gradually come up with what we're going to do. I don't know. I'm here asking for your thoughts.
So what's like, what process are we looking for with this work? Like, will we start different tracks perhaps and gather people interested in, for example, dealing with services, like binding services and secrets, and then maybe start one around observability? And is it okay also to add more to this document, and perhaps if there's interest, and start again a discussion with the interested people?
I think it's open to everyone. Yeah, I just opened it up to, I mean, for now, when I found when you start a document, not too many people know about it. You can let it be just open. So please, this is me, I'm just trying to figure out how we get this going. I think that's one of the hardest parts is kind of bootstrapping these efforts. Like everybody's talking about service bindings and secret sprawl and but there's like if you look at that list there, it's like every single project has a different approach. So
I think that's where at least what I've found in these kind of things is at least putting our own sort of thoughts without kind of being too opinionated, but at least put a little bit of our own thoughts in terms of like, hey, like what's a hypothesis, right? Maybe we label it as, here's like a hypothesis to what we believe is, an approach, and we don't even have to dive too deep into. So I think actually one of the things I was talking with Taras about as well here is that really, I think the challenge with the platform engineering community and what he feels is that a lot of these like companies, they'll throw out a solution and everybody knows about the solution, right? Because you go on LinkedIn, you see one open source project after another, but it's more around like the design considerations, the trade-offs, and how to think about those trade-offs. And I think that's kind of the meat in terms of what we would want to provide. And whenever so if I'm talking about multi-tenancy, for example, like here's an example with multi-tenancy, right? Like V clusters versus not using V clusters, or those types. Yeah, or whatever it is, right? Or kind of implementing the RBAC yourself, or should you not implement the RBAC, or you should use something like, like in our case, we have Parallels, for example. I'm just giving that example because I know it well, right? There are trade-offs, right? In terms of thinking, like, for us to say that you should only use this one technology is not right, because like you have to, for every organization, there's going to be different considerations around like how equipped are your development teams, where does the control of governance lie in, like who's responsible for that, like how fast do things move in your organization, like all these kind of things that kind of trickle down into sort of what strategic initiative you're going to take in terms of building out these capabilities, right? So my thinking is, if we can kind of provide that food for thought whenever we're talking for each of those capabilities, and then kind of give some guiding lights into like, here's how you should think about the designs and trade-offs, I think, and then kind of present that as like a hypothesis around thinking about the idea and some of the frameworks, then that could be good for us, is what I was thinking there.
So it's
see that.
Yes, and Josh, just to give a one hint here, like one of the meeting I joined, I think there's one group in CNCF called the Policy Working Group. I joined some of the meetings in the past there. So usually they talk about, if you just forget about other things, if you go to the Kubernetes landscape, you see the way the Kubernetes is built up, you actually in touching with the policies. If you know it or if you don't know it, you're actually touching with the policies. If you go to the platform, I think the biggest conversation is all around like the platform used by 10,000, might be 100,000 different numbers of team. That number might be a huge one. And when you have a huge number, I think that the first problem that people like to see in is they do not pollute the work that I have done. They do not actually mess up the work that I have done. So actually, I think it's a kind of story is kind of gigantic because it has so many moving pieces into it. If you talk about platform, some people talking about governance, some people start thinking about multi-tenancy, some people thinking about the access management, some people thinking about its drift detection. So having a generic definition is quite a problem here. But I think having at least those problems that we know faced by everyone, we can list those if we can list those, then people can get around like, now we have a solution available for the large problem that is majority of the community is facing. And we can talk about some of the CNCF open source tools we have. That's what I'm experiencing with some other CNCF working group as well. But I think our domain is kind of unique in that category because we have so much to talk about in a very in a perspective that people can able, because if you talk about a lot of different things, it's difficult to people to grasp the, like, actually you lose focus on these kind of stuff. But definitely I think having some core principle that we come up, some of the platform capabilities that I have read into the different documents, I think the most talking about security, governance, access management, and policy enforcement and network policies. That is the, I think 6 pieces is actually most popular when I read the blog post. But this kind of debatable for those are actually those are actually enough, or we can actually accelerate the conversation. But I think those 6 are actually, you can't avoid, like policy enforcement, security, governance, and access management, and giving access to the different people. I think those are everywhere.
A quick question here. Sorry, I joined in late, so I missed the conversation earlier. Yes, security, all of these aspects are required for a platform, but shouldn't we, as a platform, it should save developers time, because at the end of the day, our customer, for a lack of better word, is the developer itself. And if we are going to tell him that, okay, you have to run through multiple hoops to adopt this particular platform, he's going to say, no, I am happy with kubectl or whatever the CLI tool is. So sort of like Heroku, but with built-in security, compliance and stuff like that, which all the blogs talk about. So I think that is the definition of platform. That can be a definition of platform.
So I think so when we're talking about the platforms, it's like, yes, your developer is the one consuming it, right? And it has to be, you have to solve for a great developer experience, but you also have to, it's like that whole yin and yang between, you can't provide that great developer experience without the governance as well for the platform engineer who's trying to build this out, right? Or so you kind of need both in some ways, right? And so anybody building a platform is going to have to make sure, because it's like if you try to do all self-service with no governance, then you also run into issues as well, right? And vice versa. So I think the way we'd want to talk about it in the platform side of things, which is a good point, is that to the developer, I think this should be like kind of opaque, right? Like they shouldn't have to care around about security and isolation and all that kind of stuff. That's not their job, right? Their job is to ultimately build and deploy apps. But to any platform team who's building out these platforms and who wants to be able to scale them out and make sure everything is compliant and secure, like there's some things that they can follow, and here's kind of the building blocks to make that work, right? So that's at least that's what, I feel like that's the way we've come or talked about it in the paper so far, right? Like we have to solve for the platform builders as well as the platform
call for the platform builders. So sort of a tool to build an internal developer platform, then sort of it's like Inception, a dream within a dream within a dream.
Not necessarily, right? I think we're talking about just whenever, if you're talking about a platform in general, right? The way, the way, at least, we have a paper and we've started to talk about this, right? But, just the way I would describe it, right, is like you're building a shared services platform that's for internal stakeholders in your organization, right? FinOps, developers, SREs, customer success, anybody, right? And so when you're talking about delivering capabilities that they need, right, to your point, right, they have to be things that are consumable, easy to use, provide a great developer experience, right? But in order to be able to get to there, you also, like if they're running, for example, in shared infrastructure, or there's some compliance and security protocols that your organization has to follow, how do you make sure as a platform builder that I can solve for those easily at the same time as well, right? So I think we're talking about it in that consideration, like one platform, right, ultimately, but thinking about the pain points of every persona, which includes the person building that platform as well.
Folks,
Sort of like
little
a
over time.
separate-
Just
Okay.
it's a little over time, so that's why I have to let people go that want to go. This has been a great conversation. You could stay on and talk. I'll stay here. But thank you all for joining, and yeah, we'll see you online and chat online, and see you in a couple weeks.
Yep, I
Thanks.
do have to drop, but thanks everyone.
Thank you, Josh.
Thanks,
Thank you, everyone. Bye bye. Have a
Thank
wonderful
you.
day.
Bye.
Got it.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Okay, I stuck around to see if.
Yeah, I was still here. I was just trying to find the screen.
Yeah, exactly. All right.
Yeah, I
So,
sent Chris a message on the Slack to chat about
Sweet.
or chat through the website stuff.
Sweet.
And I'll see you at KubeCon. I know I'll be there on like Sunday. Or I'll be arriving Sunday. I don't know if anybody wants to get a head start and just hack through some stuff, but I'm trying to use
Okay.
KubeCon as a working week, not a go around and talk to vendors week, but
I talk to friends.
yeah,
All you-
exactly.
all you.
Exactly. I want to build. Let's do that.
Yeah. Okay, I'll be in touch. We're gonna talk again in a couple of weeks online too. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I'm looking forward to meet at KubeCon.
Yeah. Be awesome.
Yeah.
All right, guys. See ya.
have a good one.
Bye.